Hey, welcome to Growing. We hope you're doing well today. Some of you remember sitting in science class, whether it was in elementary, middle school, high school, or even college. Some of you remember talking about the different laws, Sir Isaac Newton, the law of gravity. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, the third law there. And so there's different laws in science that help us understand what's going on in our atmosphere. But God's word also has some different laws. And we're not talking about thou shalt not. But there's a law in the Bible in Galatians chapter 6, beginning in verse 2, that I think oftentimes we probably overstep or we break. And we don't necessarily do it intentionally. We do it with the right spirit and the right heart. Galatians chapter 6, verse 2, he's talking about if a man's overtaken in a fault, if you're spiritual, restore such a one in meekness, considering yourself. Don't ever think of yourself being like, well, I'll never fall and do that. Because he said, just be careful, because there's a good chance you can too. We know we can. But then he says this, bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Bear ye one another's burdens. I want you to listen to this statement, and this is what this passage is talking about. That we are responsible. It's called the law of responsibility. That we are responsible to each other and not for each other. We are responsible to each other and not for each other. And so if you're looking at the law of responsibility, the word burden here, bear ye one another's burdens, and he says, I want you to help these people bear their burdens. And what is he talking about? This word burden is Strong's G 99, and it's financial, health, certain crisis that they're going to come through in their life that was unexpected, that was something that they necessarily didn't bring on themselves. It is something that God has allowed to come into their life, and now you have an opportunity to help them. He says it's a back-breaking burden that honestly they're just not able to do on their own. They're just not able to do it. But as you go on down the scriptures, in just two more verses, he talks about letting every man prove his own work, and then he'll have rejoicing. He said this, for every man shall bear his own burden. Now, wait a minute. Just in verse 2, he says, bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. And then he says in verse 5, for every man shall bear his own burden. Well, which one is it? Do we bear people's burdens, or do we let people bear their own burdens? Well, once again, you got to go to what the word burden means. In verse 2, it means backbreaking, financial, health, crisis, things that they did not bring on themselves, God allowed into their life, things that they're not able to do on their own. But in Galatians chapter 5, when he says every man shall bear his own burdens, that is a totally different word. That is daily responsibilities, attitudes, the way you feel about something, different chores, your work. Because in verse 4, he said, let every man prove his own work, meaning do not let somebody do your work for you. The chores that you're supposed to do, getting up, going to work, taking your kids to school, kids doing your own homework, parents not doing the homework for them unless it's a burden that they're not able to bear. But let your kids do their own chores. Let your kids do their own homework. Let your kids do their own work. And it is their responsibility to bear their own burdens in the daily responsibilities of life, just like it's your and my responsibility to bear our own burdens for our daily responsibilities in life. Because if we continue to allow ourselves to bear other people's burdens, daily responsibilities, their attitudes, their feelings, the way they feel about something, the way they act towards something, if we try to take on that, then we're enabling them to continue to be what? Lazy. And so what we need to do in the law of responsibility is remember this: we are responsible to each other and not for each other. And secondly, refuse to take the responsibility that is ultimately someone else's. So bear one another burdens and fulfill the law of Christ. But Galatians 6:5, let every man bear his own burdens, or bear his own load, his daily responsibilities. You're not responsible for other people's attitudes or the way they feel, the way they react. They're 100% responsible for those things. What our responsibility is to look out for people who have such a weight on them and such a burden on them that they're not able to carry it. And God will bring those people into your life to able to help, and he will put them at the right place at the right time so that you're able to help bear those burdens. I pray that you would reach out and help people to bear their burdens, but also stay out of people's lives and the daily responsibilities, and allow your kids and other people to bear their own burdens when it is their load to bear. Hope you have a great day.